I have my microphone on. Are we rolling tape? All right. Wait for 1 minute. Welcome, Awatif. Morning. All right. The time is now 10:30 in the morning on February 6th, 2025. I'm pleased to call to order the meeting of the Cuyahoga County Administrative Rules Board. For the benefit of those watching electronically, we are meeting in Committee Room B on the fourth floor of the County Administration Headquarters Building at 2079 East 9th Street in Cleveland, Ohio. Notice of this meeting was previously provided to the public by the board's clerk, Audrey Buckholtz. Standing in for Clerk Buckholtz, we are pleased to welcome Sophia Gentili, who has been appointed clerk pro tempore for this meeting by a letter signed by County Executive Chris Ronayne dated January 27, 2025. For those wishing to access this agenda for this meeting and any minutes and proposed rules and amendments to rules online, please visit the Cuyahoga County Administrative Rules Board homepage, available to all. Click on the meeting calendar tab when you get there, and then click on the agenda items for any given meeting, including this one. So, Clerk Pro Tempore Gentili, would you please call the roll for this meeting?
Gregory Huth.
Here.
Nora Hurley, absent. Awatif Assad.
Here.
Rick Manilow.
Here.
Walter Parfiawick.
Here.
Thank you, Clerk Pro Tempore Gentili. Nora Hurley is absent because she's attending a Cuyahoga County Emergency Management Training at Harvard Road, I believe. So her absence is excused. The minutes of our October 17, 2024 meeting were previously distributed to the members of the Administrative Rules Board. They were reviewed by me prior to being distributed. Is there a motion to approve said minutes?
Motion to approve said minutes?
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, those in favor of approving the minutes of the October 17, 2024 meeting signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. All right. It is unanimous. The minutes are approved. Next, are there any individuals who would like to comment on the substantive item on the agenda? Looking out into the audience, I see no members of the public who are here, so we will dispense with that agenda item. The next item on our agenda, item 5, is items under consideration for adoption, potentially under a waiver of our 2-reading rules. So, in accordance with our rules, the substantive items on the this morning's agenda are to be presented by a, quote, duly authorized representative from the requesting department, and the presentation has to encompass 3 things. 1, a description of the proposed rule and its impact on county operations or the general public. Number 2, a statement of the requested action of this board, such as adoption, amendment, or rescission. In this case, it would be adoption. And number 3, a response to any commentary submitted by a member of the public. So as to the duly authorized representative from the requesting department requirement, we are pleased to have with us this morning Dominique Tatum, a manager in the business services department in our fiscal office, who has primary knowledge of the rule being proposed for adoption. Welcome, Ms. Tatum. And as to public commentary, before we proceed with presentations of the item on today's agenda, I would ask Ms. Tatum and Clerk Pro Tempore Gentili whether you are aware of any written commentary on the agenda item that was delivered by the deadline of 10:30 a.m. today. Are you aware of any? All right. Ms. Gentili, are you aware of any?
I am not aware of any items.
All right. Then with that, we can proceed with the presentation. Would you please present on the proposed rule entitled Cuyahoga County Assigned Counsel Policy? Ms. Tatum.
Good morning. The
Good
Office
morning.
of the Public Defender provides reimbursement for counties who provide indigent defense costs, including the cost of appointed counsel. After the county pays these costs, after the county pays for these costs, they can request reimbursement by submitting the required documentation to the Ohio Public Defender's Office. The office will then review each submission monthly for compliance. They'll calculate the allowable total cost for appointed counsel, and they'll reimburse us up to 100% at the designated reimbursement rate. How the process currently works is when we receive a copy of the fee bill from the courts, we process it and we remit payment to the attorneys. At the end of the month, we'll generate a report. The reports are then sent to the Ohio Public Defender's Office for reimbursement, and those reports have to be submitted within 90 days. The issue that we're currently facing is that we're receiving fee bills from attorneys that are after that 90-day reimbursement period, but we're still paying the cost, which the general fund is currently bearing the cost of those late submissions. So what we're seeking is to get approval to set a 60-day rule where any reimbursements requests that we receive after the 60 days will not be paid, because we want to ensure that we're receiving reimbursement for everything that we pay out.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Tatum. Members of the board, do you have any questions for Ms. Tatum? Or do you have any comments on the proposed rule? I'll start with one, and then we can all chime in to the extent we have comments. I just would ask if it's clear to you, and I guess to this group as well, what when the clock starts to tick. So it's I understand it's that the rule is that within 90 days after the end of the month in which the case was finally disposed of or terminated, and then in parentheses, last day in court or entry filed from the last day in court. I am not a litigator, and so I am just curious to know whether everybody is on board with when a case is quote unquote finally disposed of or terminated. Is that clear to everybody?
I'm not a litigator either, but I think, and just to be clear, I drafted this for fiscal office.
Thank you,
basically went through the Ohio Public Defender's handbook and pulled out all the stuff that I felt was relevant to address the issue we're dealing with. And I do want to say that the Public Defender's policy says counties can adopt a policy like this to be sure that we can respond to the OPD and within the time frames required by OPD. And in fact, Franklin County has done something similar, although they adopted the entire handbook as their policy. I didn't quite think that was necessary. But, again, to your specific question, not being a litigator, it's not entirely clear to me, but there are examples in the OPD handbook that I've cut and pasted into ours so that people would so hopefully the litigators understand. I mean, that's kind of the point of this, is that the litigators understand what they have to do.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, that background and history is helpful, and thank you for undertaking the efforts to assist the fiscal office in drafting this policy. I think that gives me, and I'm sure all of us, great comfort that you participated as actively as you did in the process. Any others with comments or questions on this specific issue, or any other comments or questions? Walter?
Yeah, I'll just say I think the policy is pretty clear. I mean, it at a minimum formalizes, what we're going to follow, but at the same time, it gives us some reassurance, from a county perspective, that the general fund is not incurring costs that we can't get reimbursed for. So I like it. I'm in support of it.
Thank you.
Any other, Awatif, do you have any questions or thoughts?
Just as a comment, I believe the case is disposed when the court issues its final ruling in the case on the docket. The case is dismissed, like on a motion for summary judgment, or the final entry on the docket by the judge.
Okay, and if a case is settled or dismissed, and is the judge always involved giving a final order on the record? Is that always the case, or are some cases brought that don't reach that point where a judge issues an order to terminate a case? I guess that's the question in my mind. I don't know the answer to it.
What I would add is when they do submit like their fee bill statements to us, they complete a form. The form goes to like the court of the different municipalities, municipal courts. So they will send it to the court. The court will print a copy of the docket, and then it goes to the judge to sign off and approve it. And once the judge approves it, that's when they submit it to us for payback.
Okay. Okay. All right. Excellent. I guess, any other questions? No, thank you. I guess at this point in our proceedings, as we always do, I will remind the board members of our standard of review, which is simply to, number one, determine whether the requesting entity, here the fiscal office, has the authority to adopt the rule in question, and number two, whether the proposed rule conflicts with the county code. That is our role in this process. And so, I guess, Ms. Tatum, if you would kindly explain for the record why you believe it is important or not that this board suspend its two-reading rule as it relates to the proposed adoption of the policy that you have presented.
I would say it's kind of important to suspend the rule. It's just because we have already lost a lot of money in the past with paying out a lot of expenses that we know we will not get reimbursed for. So our goal is to try to get this into effect as soon as possible, just to ensure that we can recoup everything that we pay. And then since we're currently already dealing with the deficit of our general fund, we don't want to continue bearing additional cost.
Thank you, Ms. Tatum. So with that, I will now entertain a motion to suspend the aforesaid two-reading rule. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Greg. Second?
Second.
Walter has seconded the motion. Any discussion on the motion to suspend the two-reading rule? Hearing none, calling the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. The ayes have it. Clerk, please have the record reflect that all of the members of this board in attendance voted in the affirmative to suspend the two-reading rule. Calling now the main question, is there a motion to adopt the proposed rule?
Move to adopt the proposed rule.
Thank you, Awatif. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Greg Huth has seconded the motion. Any further discussion on this motion to adopt the proposed rule as presented? Hearing none, calling the question. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The ayes have it. Clerk Pro Tempore Gentili, please have the record reflect that all of the members of the Administrative Rules Board in attendance voted in the affirmative to adopt the proposed rule as presented by Ms. Tatum. Thank you very much. I would move then on to the next item on the agenda, which is miscellaneous business to be discussed. Is there any? Hearing none. Moving on to the next item, I will dispense with that because there's the agenda item is public comment unrelated to the agenda, and even Ms. Tatum is now gone, and so there is no one, for the record, sitting in any seats in this room other than Ms. Gentili and the 4 members of the Administrative Rules Board. So with that, we'll meet again in 2 weeks unless there's no business to attend to, in which case the meeting will be canceled. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for your time and attention.